Hey, Larken Rose here. Have you heard? Donald Trump is going to end taxes on Social Security benefits. No, he's not. I hope I don't have to tell you that politicians are lying crooks, but this video isn't even about that. They're all power-happy, corrupt pieces of crap. It's true of Trump, it's true of Kamala, it's true of pretty much everybody who runs for public office at almost any level. A few might mean well to begin with, but they are quickly either corrupted or they're kicked out. I'm not even talking about that in this video. I'm talking about several layers more of just the absolute bullshit that happens on a regular basis. And the whole thing of Trump running ads where he says, I will end taxes on Social Security benefits. Oh, that's so wonderful. No, you won't. Now, I don't mean he's not going to follow through on his promise. I mean, he can't follow through on his promise. The president has absolutely no power whatsoever to do any such thing. That's in the Internal Revenue Code, Section 86, I believe. Congress writes those laws. The president doesn't. He can't do anything at all to change taxes on Social Security. Absolutely nothing. So he might as well come out and say, if elected, I will make there be rainbows every day all around the world. No, you won't. You have no such power. And you have no such power to do anything to the tax code. And so the people who fall for he's going to do away with the income tax, which is just ridiculous, down to the more mild, utter bullshit of he's going to end taxes on Social Security. The fact that nobody in the media and nobody in either party ever points this out is a fine demonstration of the fact that none of them give a shit about you. None of them give a shit about the truth. So you have Democrats and Republicans promising things that they can't do. They don't have the power to do it at all, even if they wanted to, even if they actually meant their promises and intended to follow through. Like that's ever going to happen anyway. They don't have the power. And there are so many things. Now, let me be clear for the millionth time, the entire legal system is completely bullshit. It's bogus start to finish. So when I talk about what's legal and what isn't and how their system works, none of it is to imply that it's at all legitimate. It's not. But inside their bogus authoritarian rules, there are the way things work. And they constantly lie about the way things work. And what's so funny and or sad to me is how often both sides totally lie about how the way things work, and the media says nothing about it, and none of the pundits say anything about it, because everybody who supports Democrats and Republicans know we can't admit this because our liars lie about this just as much as their liars lie about it. There was an interesting thing where accidentally a bit of truth almost made it out in the Bush-Gore election, which was, what's Florida going to do? And the media sort of accidentally admitted something that is indisputably true. You can look it up yourself. But then they quickly never mind, don't talk about that, because Florida was disputed. Is it Gore or Bush that Florida's electoral votes are going to go to? And they mentioned a strange thing. The people don't elect the president. Have you ever heard any politician running for office say that? Look it up in the Constitution. The people do not vote for the President of the United States. So all the people out there are a great democracy, and they're talking about the presidential race. They're all lying their asses off. The people don't elect the president. I don't just mean it's corrupt and they fudge things in that. I mean, under the Constitution, state legislatures and nobody else choose the electors, and for the Electoral College, that whole ridiculous mess, who choose the president. The people don't. Now, in every state, they put on the show of having a public election because they realize that by way of the bullshit ritual of democracy, they can better dupe people into thinking that the people have some say in the outcome, when you never did and you never will in their bogus game. But it was funny that when that story came out, a couple times the media said, well, technically the Florida legislature can do anything they want. They don't have to pay any attention to the popular vote. You could have every single voter in Florida saying, we want this guy to be president, and the legislature can absolutely 100% constitutionally and legally say, sucks to be you, we're going to give all our electoral votes to this guy. Because it's not up to the people. You can read this in the Constitution. It's clear as day how the election for president works. Now, election for House members and Senate members are a different thing. You can look them up if you care. None of it matters anyway. It's all bullshit rituals, all of it illegitimate. But the fact that none of them ever admit this. And both of them are talking about, oh, great democracy, and I got the most votes, and Trump will never say it. Kamala will never say it. None of the talking heads on Fox News or any of the leftists, none of them are ever going to say the people don't elect the president. But they don't. And the thing is, that's far from being the only example of something that's glaringly obvious in the Constitution that they just don't talk about, even though it's plain as day if you actually read the Constitution. Trump does not give a shit about the Constitution. Now, Kamala doesn't give a shit about the Constitution. Biden doesn't give a shit about it. No, none of the Democrats do either. But I think lots of conservatives can imagine, oh, they're like socialists and stuff, but we care about the Constitution. My borders! Point to me in the Constitution where the federal government has the power to keep anybody out of the country. They don't. Well, it's sort of implied. Ever read the 9th and 10th Amendments? Because they basically say, there's nothing sort of implied. What the Constitution doesn't specifically say is a power belonging to the federal government belongs to the people or to the state governments. Nowhere does it say a damn word about the federal government having the power to keep anybody out of the country. You can debate whether the states do. The feds obviously do not. But haven't the courts upheld? Yeah, the courts, these black robe wearing God complex jackasses appointed by the politicians, have often just decided that the politicians have the power to do things that are obviously not in the Constitution. For example, 0 in the Constitution gives the federal government any power at all over firearms ownership. And the Second Amendment specifically says, here's one thing you in particular don't ever get to do. And the federal courts go, well, we've decided that because of the Commerce Clause and the impact of the Smith, they're allowed to do it. And then there's 8 gazillion federal gun control laws. They just made it up. You can read the thing, you know. You can read the words in the thing. It's not a secret document. Might as well be. And 0 Republicans actually stick by that. They'll say, we believe in Second Amendment rights. Good. You going to repeal all the laws against machine guns too? All the federal laws? Well, I think, okay, so you're full of shit. You don't believe in the Second Amendment at all, or the 9th or the 10th, which say the feds can't do anything unless the Constitution specifically gives them power. Under the Constitution, the powers delegated to the United States government were supposed to be few and defined, and everything else belongs to the people or the state. That's what James Madison, the father of the Constitution, said. It's what the 9th and 10th Amendments put right into writing. If this doesn't say they can do it, they can't. Does it say they can do it? Nope. Did they appoint judges to say, oh, we interpret that to mean the exact opposite of what it says, and they can do anything they damn well please? Oh, well, the courts have upheld it, so, I mean, I guess that's what the Constitution meant. It's that dumb. And no Republican is going to point it out because no Republican abides by the Constitution. Have you ever heard any Republican say, well, whatever you think about the border, the federal government has no power to forcibly keep anybody out? No, you've never heard any Republican say that, even though it is indisputable fact if you read the stinking Constitution. Do the Democrats, I mean, the lip service they give to the Constitution is just pathetic, because literally everything they promote is way outside of and totally against what the Constitution describes. Only 99% of what Republicans propose is outside. The 1% of like, well, no, even the military is a standing army, which is not supposed to exist under the Constitution. You can read that. Yeah, you can temporarily have funding to briefly have a, oh, briefly, you mean like the entire history of the last 100 and whatever years? Constant warmongering with a standing army everywhere all over the world? No, oddly, the Constitution doesn't authorize that. But no Republicans are going to say so. And no Democrats are going to say so. So even where they differ and are pushing bullshit, just random arbitrary powers, none of them on either side ever come out. They'll pretend this is a violation of somebody's Fourth Amendment rights, because in this particular case, they think they can get some political clout by pretending to give a shit about Fourth Amendment rights in this case, even though they totally don't. The TSA, we're going to rummage through your stuff, and you have to let us rummage through your stuff before we let you travel. Where is that allowed? Where are the feds allowed to do that? I can tell you where they are specifically prohibited from doing it. It's called the Fourth Amendment. It's an unreasonable search and seizure without probable cause. Every single person trying to get on a plane has their Fourth Amendment violated by the TSA. Where is the federal government given power to do any such thing? It isn't. Where are the Republicans saying, hey, the federal government has no power to do any such thing? There aren't any, because they don't give a shit about the Constitution any more than the Democrats do. But the fact that these things are literally black and white, again, I don't believe in the Constitution at all. None of the power that it pretends to create is legitimate. But here's what it pretends to create. Here's what every Democrat and Republican claims it authorizes. Social Security, Medicare, everything it does. You look at the federal budget. Basically, the entire thing is stuff the federal government isn't allowed to do. And nobody running for office, nobody at Fox, nobody in the legacy leftist media is going to say a word. And the fact that they can just do this, like you can look at the Constitution of North Korea, because they have one. It has a Bill of Rights. It says all the things that individuals aren't going to be oppressed by their government in these ways. And we can laugh about it and go, yeah, but there's North Korea. They don't pay any attention to that. Yeah, neither does the U.S. government. They pay no attention to the Second Amendment, the Fourth, the Fifth, the Sixth, the Seventh, the Ninth, the 10th. Other ones might be sort of debatable. The Third Amendment is the only one the feds don't violate on a daily basis. Most of you probably don't know what the Third Amendment is because it's so obscure, which is soldiers aren't allowed to barge in your house and say, we're staying here without your permission. It's like, when has that happened? Okay, that's the one amendment that they don't violate. I mean, they totally would if they felt the need to, and they'd get a judge to say, well, they're not reading the Commerce Clause and the sovereignty of the general principle of government powers. They're allowed to do that because that's what they did for every other thing, just making shit up. And so it's more pathetic to me that conservatives don't know this. Because Democrats are mostly just socialists who don't know anything about the Constitution, don't really give a shit. They're sort of watered down Marxists most of the time because it's based on feels. They don't even have coherent intellectual philosophy. They just, I want free stuff. I want everybody taken care of. Okay. Countries have tried that. It ended very, 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 very badly for hundreds of millions of people. Don't try that again. But they don't care. They have their stupid feels, and they don't think about things, and they don't know history, and they don't know principles or anything else. But conservatives pretend to give a crap about the Constitution, yet none of them will ever mention any of what I'm telling you, even though you can just look it up and read and go, oh, There's no authority for what the TSA does. There's no authority for the Army constantly being at war everywhere and getting funding every year. There's no authority for any border controls at the federal level at all. There's no authority for literally 99% of what the federal government does. In fact, it's probably higher than 99% if you're doing it by budget. They're allowed to have a navy, like to protect the borders. The list is really short. Article 1, Section 8 lists the only things that the federal government is constitutionally authorized, which is bogus anyway, to do within the 50 states. Those are the only things. Read the list and you'll go, do they even do these things? Like, they have postal routes. Good. Is that necessary now? Not really. We're going to have a gigantic interstate system and pretend that postal routes require that. Okay, that's a stretch beyond stretches, but let's give them that. How about literally everything else? No, it's not there. It's not on the list. They have no power to do it. Trump will never say that. Obviously, Kamala will never say that. They don't even admit that you don't choose the president. All this friggin' circus of, we need to count the people's votes, and they're miscounting the votes, and blah, blah. Those votes don't matter at all. The grand total of every single vote of every single American who votes in a presidential election carries exactly a grand total of 0 legal weight at all. They're irrelevant. The state legislatures put on this show so you can feel like you have some influence. You don't. The state legislatures choose the president by way of the Electoral College, that silly game. You don't. American voters don't. It's a danger to our precious democracy. There isn't one. You just made that up. And, people can debate, well, it's a republic, not a democracy. Like, I'm not even getting into that whole thing, because constitutional republics are just as bogus and oppressive as democracies. If you don't think so, while I'm handing out homework, read the Constitution of the Soviet Union before it collapsed. Read the Constitution of Red China under Mao. Read the Constitution of North Korea, the Constitution of the Weimar Republic, which turned into Nazi Germany. Weimar, for those who are going to complain about my pronunciation of it. Read the constitutions. They sound very similar. Why is that? They're all democratically elected constitutional republics, and they were the worst tyrannies in the history of the world. So when conservatives are out there saying, this isn't a democracy, this is a constitutional republic. Oh, you mean the most oppressive institutions the world has ever known, and you're bragging about that? And I didn't know this. I was never taught this. You can look up the constitutions of those other countries. They lie about that too. And these are things that are really easy to look up, especially now that we have the internet. You can look up the U.S. Constitution. You can look up the Soviet Union Constitution in all its various forms throughout the years. And you can see, that's not what they said it was going to be. That's not what this actually describes. Why is no one saying this? Because none of the politicians and none of their talking heads on their bullshit news programs, which are just Pravda West, they're just propaganda left and right, none of them would be served by telling you patently obvious, simple, indisputable facts about how the legal system was built and was supposed to work. So every single one pretends, for example, that the people choose the president. The people don't choose the president. Look it up. And I'm guessing some of the people watching this are like, what are you talking about? Of course they do. Look it up in the Constitution. It very specifically and clearly describes how the president of the United States is chosen. You won't see one damn mention of the people or the people being allowed to vote or anything of the sort for president, because that has nothing to do with that. And no one in the Republican Party is ever going to say a word about that, or in the Democrat Party, obviously. But the number of things they lie about just constantly, Trump coming out, I will end taxes on... How the hell will you do that? You're the executive branch, dumbass. Congress, the legislative branch, is the one that makes the tax laws. You might as well have the janitor at the White House come out and say, I'm going to end taxes on Social Security, because the janitor at the White House has exactly as much authority as the president to change tax law. None at all. And every single person in the media knows that. And notice they're not even calling Trump on that, because their own bullshitters use the same bullshit and promise, I'm going to give this tax cut and you'd be president. You can't give anyone a tax cut of anything. You could pardon people prosecuted for tax crimes, which you never will. You can't have the human livestock not paying tribute to the ruling class that you're a part of, so you don't really give a shit about the people being robbed. You can talk about your different plans and have no intention of following through on them. But if you watch closely in the media, they'll admit, well, there's the House bill, and it's like, wait a minute, what House bill? This was the president talking about doing this. Congress is a different thing. Executive branch, legislative branch. Why was that guy saying he was going to do anything if he literally has no power whatsoever to introduce any legislation? He can say to Congress, I hope you'll pass this. And Republicans can go, oh, okay, I can do that too. The janitor can say to Congress, hey, would you like to pass this? Congress is still the one that decides whether to do it. The president isn't. Anyway, could rant on and on about this. And it's all over the place. It's in almost everything, every legal issue that the media ever talks about, including like Fox News and supposedly conservative media and all of the politicians on both sides. Every bit of what they talk about is an absolute bald-faced lie. It's not how the system works at all. Under their own crappy, illegitimate system. They just lie about the rules, and they all lie in unison. They will bicker about details that don't matter, and they'll ignore the fact that both campaigns are absolutely lying their asses off about absolutely everything having to do with the Constitution, because the truth doesn't serve either side. So while they're saying, oh, you're lying about the employment numbers and all other stupid, trivial details of whatever, they all in unison uphold the lie that they have the power to do any of this, that the people elect the president, that the federal government is authorized to, Trump talking about Obamacare, it was a bad plan. We're going to come up with a better plan. Really? Where in the Constitution does it say the federal government has any right to have any plan having anything to do with anybody's health care? It doesn't. Do the 9th and 10th Amendments specifically say the feds therefore have no power to do that? Yep. Does Trump care? No. Does Kamala care? No. Do any Republicans care? No. Are any of them going to say, we don't actually have the power to do any of this? Nope. They never will, even though you can just look it up and go, oh yeah, they're just making shit up. It's just arbitrary power. Random, arbitrary, authoritarian power promoted and committed by both sides. And the weirdest thing is they still give lip service to the Constitution as if any of them give a crap about it, when a grand total of 0 of them do. So if you're a conservative who loves the Constitution, pick one. Because the Republicans are every bit 100% the enemy of the Constitution the same way the Democrats are. So if you're going to be constitutionalist, you have to be 100% anti the Republican Party. And, of course, 100% anti the Democrat Party. So you don't have any principles either. If you're not going to look at this and go, wait, holy crap, I have to rethink things. If you ever say, Trump cares about the Constitution, after looking into it, you're either a liar or an idiot. And in the case of Trump, he's a liar. He may also be an idiot, but he's an absolute liar. So is every single Republican congressman. They all know this. They all lie. They all keep their mouths shut when people are talking about a great democracy where the people don't actually choose the president. But none of us are going to mention that to you. Your vote matters. No, it doesn't. It literally doesn't. Legally, your vote means absolutely nothing. It carries no weight whatsoever. Just one of a gazillion things they lie about. So it's amazing the number of things that all of them, the entire group, left and right, the whole media that reports for them, are just saying these blatant, obvious lies that you can look them up and see, oh, yeah, that's totally a lie. And none of them will say a thing about it. So if you didn't know that, that's fine. That puts you in company of almost everybody in the country. If you now, first of all, if you don't dare to look it up, you're a spineless coward. If you do look it up and continue to support Republicans, never again pretend you give a shit about the Constitution, because you absolutely do not. You don't give a shit about the Second or Fourth or Fifth or Sixth or Ninth or 10th Amendment. Basically none of them. Maybe you care about the third. It's the one they don't violate. You don't give a shit about the rest of the Constitution if you're a Republican or if you're a Democrat. But they can't even stop pretending. They can't even stop giving lip service to the Constitution. At least, I mean, it's horrible, but every once in a while the Democrats are sort of like, well, that's an old document and maybe they weren't thinking of they're at least going in the direction of admitting they don't give a shit what it says. Republicans still pretend to give a shit what the Constitution says when they absolutely do not. Zero of them give a shit what the Constitution says. Same thing with libertarian candidates and third-party candidates too. Like, none of them dare to come out and say, by the way, in case you were wondering, people don't actually vote the president into power. It's not how the system works. So, yeah, look it up. It's not that difficult to find the text of the Constitution. And then next time you watch the news, realize every single one of these people is absolutely lying their asses off about almost everything, and they all know it. Are you still going to play a game and choose between two puppets when you know that both of them and everyone in their parties that supports both of them and everyone in the media that supports either one of them is absolutely intentionally on a daily basis lying their ass off about every single thing they ever say about the legal system? You still going to vote for that shit?